Well, they're all socialists now. Democrats getting on board the Zohran Mamdani train. The smiling socialist making a final push before next week's election. And he says the government will save us all.
No New Yorker should ever be priced out of anything they need to survive. And we believed then, we believe today, we will believe tomorrow that it is government's job to deliver that dignity. Dignity, my friends, is another way of saying freedom.
Zohran's cheer squad was right next to him. Bernie Sanders hyping up free everything, and AOC saying, trust me, guys, we're not crazy.
We are not the crazy ones, New York City. We are not the outlandish ones, New York City. They want us to think we are crazy. We are sane.
New York must have a mayor who represents the working families of this city, not the billionaire class.
And other Democrats are starting to kiss the socialist ring. Hakeem Jeffries hopping on the bandwagon last minute. And Kathy Hochul was met with tax the rich chants at Mamdani's rally. Democratic whisperer Bill Maher says this election will define where the party goes.
This is not just New York that's on the ballot. I think the whole Democratic Party in the country is on the ballot. And the whole country will be looking at this race to see which way are the Democrats going to go. No, Andrew Cuomo may not be that exciting and that inspirational, but, you know, for a party that said we want to get back to normal, he's kind of normal.
All right, Dana, what is your response
Where do
to
I
the Mamdani rally?
Where do I begin? Okay, so a couple things is, one, you notice that Mamdani, either he feels very comfortable in that crowd or he feels like he's got a lock on the election because his tone was back to what his usual is. For a while now, I've been feeling like this guy is so empty, he can't really go further than one step into a question or an answer to a question because he doesn't actually know the answer. That crowd that they had, is there any other group of trio of Democrats that could pull together a crowd like this? And I have a feeling that these three will take it on the road, and their first stops will be South Carolina, New Hampshire, and Nevada. Another thing is that AOC was playing all the Kamala hits, right? We had fascists, extremists, Jim Crow. They've got a well-oiled machine, and if you think about who's competing right now for the elections next week, Mamdani has Bernie and AOC in this crowd. And Mikey Sherrill and Abigail Spanberger couldn't pull a crowd like that. They are getting Obama to come out for them. They had to figure out that because they are not exciting the base, and the base is where it's at right now. One other thing. In this event, Mamdani goes after Cuomo for living in an $8,000 a month apartment. And now, okay, Cuomo's an adult. He has made money. He chooses to spend his money on the shelter that of his choice, while Mamdani and his wife, he was born wealthy, she's even wealthier. And they choose to live in a rent-stabilized apartment. Yeah. This morning, I talked about how this race in New York matters to the country because I promise this is coming to a city near you. I talked about the Minneapolis mayor's race and then the Seattle mayor's race. I learned about this woman that's running out there as a progressive Mamdani type of person. Her name's Katie Wood, grew up upper middle class here in New York, takes the Greyhound bus all around the country. Where do I want to live? Okay, this is where I want to live. She chooses to live with her husband in a 600 square foot rental with their baby. That's her choice. And she goes after the diverse immigrant who pulled himself up by his bootstraps and worked his butt off and chose to buy a home at $1.4 million in a nice neighborhood in Seattle. And that guy is sitting there going, how can I be behind in this race? Wasn't I the one that you guys were championing? No, the new champions of the Democratic Party are the progressive left.
So, Jesse, you know, it's always the Democrat elite who usher in the communist socialist ideology that they think is going to help everybody, but really it's about controlling the population. And they have a whole stable of these candidates ready to go. The Democratic Socialists of America are very organized. They have a lot of funding, and they're ready for this test case to be over so they can then go out and put these candidates in Democratic primaries all over the country to finally take over the party, and then, of course, to take over the larger aspect of politics.
Yeah, so communism's here because liberalism failed. The liberals poured millions of people into New York City. And what did that do? Make everything expensive. It drives up rent. It drives up food. It drives up insurance. No wonder everything's so expensive. They imported the third world here. So then they loan shark these kids into degrees of like women's studies, so they can't even afford a small, expensive apartment to begin with. And so communists come in and they say the government is going to fix the problem that the government created. Mm-hmm. And then he says government handouts are freedom and dignity. Now, you've heard that from some of the worst tyrants in world history, but the people who went to college never took Econ 101, never took history, so they don't even know. They're so oblivious to this guy is going to come in and do this. And I say, part of me says, you guys kind of deserve it.
So, Greg, isn't he kind of like a Che Guevara Islamist?
That gives him too much credit. This guy graduated college with a degree in Africana studies. Africana.
Like Latinx?
I have no idea. All I know is he could very well be the mayor, and it's based on the politics of envy. That was a loud chant you heard there of tax the rich. The strategy is that's how you're going to pay for it. That's how you're going to get even. We're taking their money, and there's nothing we're all going to vote, and they're all going to pay. Mm-hmm. It is a spectacle that, I mean, if you're a businessman, a go-getter, a family, if you're here, you're going to think about leaving. If you're thinking about moving here, you should watch the tax the rich thing and say, I want to be rich. Do I really want to go there? Maybe I should go to New Jersey. I mean, it smells a little different, but they're not going to hang me in a park. What is your defense when you say I'm not crazy? It's because the stuff you say are crazy. When Zohran's talking about making bus fares free, have you ever seen what his argument is for that? He says it's because the box where you put the money, it makes the homeless people who come in feel very bad that they have to pay. So just remove the conflict that leads to violence against the bus driver. Just get rid of the bus fare, the toll box, and then all the stuff. That is the reasoning of a child. Well, how do you pay for how do you pay the income of whatever called the check? How do you pay the bus driver? Where does the money go? How do you do this? It doesn't make any sense. But they're saying, let's remove the cost because it makes the crook unhappy. Okay, well then why stop at the bus? Why not do the Apple store? Those earpods are really expensive. Why doesn't he say to the people out there, we're going to pay, all those earpods are going to be free. There's nothing Apple can do about it.
Well, I would vote for that.
Yeah, so would they, because they wouldn't think, wait, is that possible?
And then nobody will have anything. Harold, do you want to talk about the future of the Democratic Party?
So I would just remind everybody, as concerned as I am about this mayoral election here, and I will say, I was to Dana's point, I was shocked here at the end of this race. Here we are, a few days into early voting. It appears that Mr. Mamdani has a pretty good lead. I would remind everybody, though, around this time, when the primary was being held, Mr. Cuomo had about an 8 to 10 point lead 12 days out and ended up losing the race. So this 10-point lead is certainly something that's surmountable. But he seems to be in a good position. I listened to him not only in that rally was a little different. I listened to some interviews of his and some speeches, some other presentations he's given Mr. Mamdani. He sounds decisively mad and divisive. Not uplifting, not unifying. I didn't hear any words. If you're about to become mayor or governor, an executive in a city or a state, nothing about safety, affordability, caring, pro-growth. All of us are going to do this together. This pitting of people against people is just unnecessary. It's not how you not how you win a race, but not how you start a term to be the mayor of the most important city, the biggest city, the most vital city in all of the world, certainly the United States, and I would argue all of the world. I hope he's able to figure this out. Now, I will remind everybody, We have two mayors in this country. Just a year ago, people talked about these cities as being irretrievably perhaps too far to the left. And I'm a Democrat, not a socialist. Philadelphia elected a woman named Cheryl Parker, who decided to go after criminals, decided to ensure that we prosecuted those. And there's a guy out there in San Francisco named Daniel Lurie, who's decided he's going to work with President Trump on issues that really matter and impact the city. That's the direction our party's going in the future.
Well, Mamdani doesn't talk about safety because he thinks crime and prison are social constructs. So, all right, coming up, using the term illegal aliens is now racist.
Here with analysis is Mark Meadows, former chief of staff to President Trump, and Riley Gaines, Outkick contributor. Great to see both of you. Mark, now, assuming that Mamdani wins, and, you know, he could lose still, it's unlikely, but he could. Should the Democrats be viewed as the official party of America's socialists?
Well, without a doubt. You know, you were playing some of those clips, Laura, and the sad part is that I believe it was at that particular gathering where they started out in a chant of DSA, not USA, but DSA for the Democrat Socialists of America. And this is all about their reforming their view of the far, far left. And I can tell you, they're more closely aligned with Karl Marx on economics than Carl Icahn. They believe that there shouldn't be any private ownership of businesses. And so when they say tax the rich, there won't be any rich in New York City left to be able to be taxed because of what they're doing. And yet you hit it the nail on the head. All the Democrats are coming alongside this mayoral candidate and, quite frankly, are not only endorsing him, but they'll have to campaign with them in 2026 and beyond.
Oh, and moving to 2028, they're obviously going to nominate a radical, or whoever the party nominee will be forced to move by the left to that radical position on, you know, issues X, Y, and Z. Riley, we found an old clip of Mamdani, which we thought quite revealing. Watch.
We clearly do not have the numbers as they are in this moment to win the radical legislation that we need to bring about. We have to continue to elect more socialists, and we have to ensure that we are unapologetic about our socialism. We cannot hide this from people. Every single person in the assembly knows that I'm a socialist.
Riley, look, he had a plan. You have to hand it to him, right? Their plan was to completely remake the old Democrat Party. Trump did it for the Republican Party, but the Democrats are remaking their party into a socialist party. Do you think that any of the old school Democrats have the mojo, Riley, to kind of try to reform this from within, or are they all cowed?
Well, honestly, Laura, I don't think there is such thing as the old school Democrats anymore. I mean, think about it. Tell me a moderate Democrat at any level, local, state, or federal. I mean, seriously, try and tell me one. Senator Fetterman is the most sane Democrat in Congress, and there's not even a close second. People like Mamdani, AOC, Crockett, those are the leaders of the Democratic Party now. That's who calls the shots. And who gets the short end of the stick here? We do. The American people, taxpayers, and right now specifically, it's military members, it's TSA workers, it's the 41 million Americans who receive SNAP benefits. They get the short end of the stick because the Democrats have voted 12 times to keep the government closed and shut down because they care more about illegals receiving health care free in this country than they do about Americans. So to be honest with you, Laura, no, I don't think we'll see reform here. I think we will continue to see them double down because, number one, either they're too ignorant, they're too prideful, or they're too evil to recant from their previous positions and voting records.
Mark, you have to admit here, the Democrats, they lost in 2016 after Obama. They barely won in 2020. They didn't get the turnout they thought last election. They go socialist now. Are they going to have to lose one or two more significant elections, either the midterms and then the presidential, to then do like 1992 and move to the middle with Bill Clinton? Is that what it's going to take here, a real drubbing, successive times?
Well, it will, because they're continuing to look for those far left candidates, and in those primaries, and to Riley's point, the Democrat primaries, you've got to be to the left of the left in order to actually get the nomination, and so they're going to have to lose in the midterms. That won't be as strong because of the gerrymandering that has taken place in Illinois and Connecticut and other states in New England, but they will have to lose again. And I believe they will lose again in 2028 because most of America literally is not with them on these issues. And when they start to see how extreme they are, it may play well at a rally in New York City, but it doesn't play well across the heartland of this country.
Yeah, Ohio doesn't play well in Iowa, doesn't play well in South Carolina.
Exactly.
At least not yet.
Exactly.
Now, Riley, you criticized AOC, Mamdani, and Sanders, kind of the socialist triplets, on X last night, writing that we are being destroyed from within. And AOC actually responded to your tweet, maybe we'll put it up on the screen, writing that maybe if you channeled all this anger into swimming faster, you wouldn't have come in fifth. Wow. Riley, I responded to that saying, wait, what Division I sport did AOC play? Was that mixology varsity letter she got? I'm not sure what she did in sports, but your reaction to her petty tweet.
Look, her position is morally bankrupt and it's politically foolish. For clarity, Laura, yes, I finished fifth in the nation at the Division I National Championships, tying with a 6'4" man who ranked 462nd in the men's division the year prior. It was like a South Park episode, but real life. And whose side does AOC and the rest of the Democratic Party take? They take the 6'4" man who flashed his junk at women in the locker room. That's whose side they take. They cannot help themselves but be on the wrong side of every 80-20 issue, whether it's border, whether it's crime, whether it's castrating children, whether it's parental rights, whether it's men and women's sports. So here is what I will say. I want to honestly challenge AOC to a debate. She can defend socialism. I will defend capitalism. She can defend removing God. I will defend embracing a biblical worldview. She can defend child sacrifice. I will defend the sanctity of life. Any of the radical, insane Democratic policies and platform that they stand for, I will debate the opposite. I'm challenging AOC to it here.
I thought you were going to challenge her to like a freestyle, 100 freestyle or something. I'm like, that's
that too.
That's an unfair fight. Or
a fair fight to her is putting a man in the pool.
Yeah, no, you could wear like 100-pound weight and challenge her to it. That would be fair, actually. Mark and Riley, both of you, thank you so much.
This was last night in Queens. The crowd chanting slogans like "Freeze the Rent," as well as DSA, which stands for Democratic Socialists of America. Take a listen.
So buckle up now. Mamdani enters the final week as the front runner. According to allies, a win for mayor would put Washington, D.C. on notice.
The election of Zohran is as important as our cause today. Childcare, buses, rent, and our rights. Here in New York City, we will send a loud message to President Donald Trump that his authoritarianism is no good here.
New York must have a mayor who represents the working families of this city, not the billionaire class.
Let our words ring out so loud tonight that Andrew Cuomo can hear them in his $8,000 a month apartment. Let them ring so loud that his puppet master in the White House hears us. New York is not for sale.
So Alexis McAdams was there last night. She's back again live this morning. New York's Museum of Natural History. Early voting is underway. And here we go in the Upper West Side. Alexis, what did you hear last night? Good morning to you.
Good morning, Bill and Dana. That's right. Well, the crowd when we were in there out in Queens went wild. They were screaming, chanting, and very excited when Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Senator Bernie Sanders came out on that stage. Why? Because they say they believe Zohran Mamdani has now joined those two as the stars of the Democratic Party. How do you describe the movement?
I think it's electric. I think I haven't seen this many people mobilize for a candidate in so long and so passionately, and I think that I'm really excited to be a part of that.
Do you think Zohran Mamdani could be the future of the Democratic Party?
I hope that he's the future of the Democratic Party.
Well, there you go. You heard it there first. The trio greeting thousands at a nearly packed Queens Stadium, which holds around 13,000 people, and the topic was affordability. They say everything from coffee to your rent is too expensive in the Big Apple. Voters say they want free childcare, free buses, and who do they want to pay for it? The rich. Do you think he should tax the rich to pay for the plan?
I mean, I am not rich, so it's easy for me to say yes.
We need something.
Ooh, so those were chants of tax the rich to Governor Kathy Hochul there. She was heckled up on that stage after they were pressuring her to increase taxes on the wealthy people in this city. Andrew Cuomo's spending the weekend out talking with voters, too, making his final push, meeting with leaders of the city's Jewish community, as the former New York governor wants voters to know he's the real Democrat, not Mamdani. Because the Democratic Party has changed so much, people say it's no longer your father's Democratic Party, you know, it's becoming more extreme. Do you even consider yourself a Democrat anymore?
I am a Democrat. I don't consider them Democrats. Zohran Mamdani is a socialist. He happens to be on the Democratic line. I am a Democrat on the independent line.
All right, more than 160,000 New Yorkers have voted early, including Republican candidate Curtis Sliwa, who just lost one of his biggest donors, who is now backing Cuomo for mayor. Back out here live, you can see that early voting sign behind me on the city's Upper West Side. As Andrew Cuomo told me, Bill, that a vote for Sliwa at this point is just a vote for Mamdani. But a lot of energy last night, and something we'll keep an eye on, too, as we look toward the national election in 2020.
No doubt about that. Thanks, Alexis. Nice to see you this morning leading our coverage today. Thank you. Dana?
Kaylee McEnany is here with us. Can we start just with the big picture perspective of a mayor's race with a rally like that on a Sunday night? What I heard from Zohran Mamdani was a very different tone and tenor, because he's been Mr. Happy Chappy, cheerful, smiling. And then you look back to his previous videos, like when he was at Columbia, and you're like, is that the guy or is that the guy? And then I realized, oh, he's the one he was in at the rally. That's the kind of leader he would be, in my opinion.
Without question, he's emboldened. Yeah. If you think about the way the Democratic caucus talks and the way they take some extreme positions and avoid kind of that middle lane that we've seen Senator Fetterman occupy, they're beholden to this movement. They're beholden to the AOCs, to the Zohran Mamdanis, to this loud socialist vision. And when I hear the crowd chanting at Governor Hochul, tax the rich, all I hear is drain the city. Let me translate that. Tax the rich is drain the city. Yeah. The top rate, when you combine New York City tax, New York State, and federal for the top income brackets, it's 51.776%. Yep. You want to create a pipeline out of this city, the so-called millionaires, billionaires, they will leave this city. You will not have a tax base. And all these grand socialist ideas you have, how are you going to fund them when you run the so-called rich out of your city?
Yeah, and you wonder how long it takes for her to concede to the demands and the pressure of the progressive left if indeed he wins 8 days from now. Let's run through a couple things and update our viewers, okay? This was last Friday afternoon. This is Mamdani talking about Islamophobia. He's Muslim, born and raised in Uganda, came to New York City at age 7 or age 8, I do believe. Roll this. This is what started it.
I want to use this moment to speak to the Muslims of New York City. I want to speak to the memory of my aunt. Who stopped taking the subway after September 11th because she did not feel safe in her hijab. Growing up in the shadow of 9/11, I have known what it means to live with an undercurrent of suspicion in this city.
Through a ton of reaction here. Here's the Vice President, J.D. Vance. According to Zohran, the real victim of 9/11 was his auntie who got some, allegedly, parenthetically, bad looks. New York Post wrote about it. Everybody wrote about it. According to Zohran Mamdani's new low, pretending he's a victim of 9/11, it writes, cross your fingers, this obscene bit of sanctimonious play acting wakes up voters he's managed to deceive until now. This guy's a whore hiding behind good looks and a grin. In addition, he went to camera and filed a 7-minute monologue about Islamophobia in New York City. And I don't know about you guys, but we live here. I didn't even know that this was even on the table until now. New York has 8.8 million residents, 1 million of whom are Muslim. And this is his closing argument, Kayleigh. So the question is, how effective is it?
It's not effective. It's a way of deflecting from his anti-Semitic remarks. The true victims of 9/11 were not Zohran Mamdani's aunt getting a few looks on the subway, she claims. They are the 3 11-year-olds who were killed on a flight on their way to a National Geographic Society meeting and instead hit the Pentagon and died that day. The real victims are Dana Falkenberg, the 3-year-old who died on that plane that hit the Pentagon. Those are the real victims. And anyone who can't acknowledge that and cannot speak to 9/11 appropriately, as I don't feel he did in that moment, you don't belong as mayor of New York City. You don't belong in elected office. And the New York Post went on. They make a great point. They said no wave of anti-Muslim hate crimes following 9/11, not in New York nor anywhere else, are documented in this huge fashion that he's claiming. Ordinary Muslims are not responsible for 9/11, of course, let's be clear on that. But the idea that there was this wave of Islamophobia, they note that he says he was warned by his teacher you could be a victim of bullying. He doesn't document actual examples of that. He talks about the looks from his aunt. Where are these concrete examples he has? Instead, he totally eschews a horrible period in American history and does not acknowledge it in its appropriate historical context, and that is disqualifying.
Early voting is underway, and that's all in New Jersey as well. Any anecdotes from that yet? Do you, for either of you? I don't know.
In New Jersey, you said?
Or here in New York, the early voting is available at this moment.
Yeah, so I had spoken with someone who is in one of these New York apartments, and they said this about just the ground game, that Zohran Mamdani's team has come 4 times to her door. Not one door knocker from Cuomo. Not one door knocker.
Not surprised.
My sense here is, you go back to 1993 when everything changed in the city and Giuliani won as a Republican. And the city had 7-1 Democrat, Republican. You know what the turnout was in 1993? 57% of registered voters voted. And ever since then, the line is straight down. 4 years ago, we had 22% turnout. That's paltry. It's almost like voters feel it's a foregone conclusion. I will tell you right now, the turnout's going to be tremendous, and we'll see whether or not the Board of Elections is up to it. But it's going to be a big turnout.
Yep, and the Mamdani folks, they're energized. Clearly, we saw that.
Yes, Kayleigh, thanks. We'll see you at noon today, okay?
Thank you. See you.
Burning hatred from smiling socialists. That's the focus of tonight's angle. To truly understand how far today's Democrats have lurched to the left, then you need to watch how Zohran Mamdani's supporters treated the pro-LGBTQ, pro-late-term abortion, pro-illegal alien, climate change fanatic Kathy Hochul last night. Now, when the New York governor got up to introduce the 34-year-old socialist who leads that New York City mayoral race, the audience wasn't really interested in her remarks and tried to drown her out, chanting,
This crowd is fired up. All right. I can hear you. You want to see Zohran or not?
tax the rich. Tax the rich? So the vocal grassroots thinks that, what, New York taxes aren't high enough? Huh. Now, mind you, New York City currently has one of the highest marginal tax rates of any city in the United States. Those making over $150,000 pay approximately 31% of the New York City tax burden. So they're already very much soaking the rich in the Big Apple. And with chants like that, no wonder the city's already seeing the Mamdani effect, where wealthy residents are planning to relocate if indeed he wins, either to Florida, Connecticut, or the New York suburbs. According to Realtor.com, agents said that since the summer, nearly every buyer from the city we've taken out to see homes in Westchester has mentioned the mayoral election as one of the drivers for shopping in the burbs. Now, when pressed on the tax the rich chant last night, Hochul did what liberals do. She tried to squirm out of answering.
I couldn't hear what they were chanting. I thought they were saying, "Let's go Bills." I wasn't sure. I mean, when you're up there, I heard some noise. I heard a lot of cheers. But later on, it became clear to me that there is I know there's passion for that.
Let's go Bills. Doesn't say anything like that. Now, there's a passion for that. Oh, there's a passion for that. Is that the new barometer for Democrats? Even if the policy advocated in the chant would actually kill the city? But Mamdani is either too stupid or too much of a diehard socialist to understand what his policies will actually do, what they'll create, which is havoc. Policies that might get a crowd going, where the government imposes price controls for everything or everything's just free.
Here is what we stand for, my friends. We are going to freeze the rent for more than 2 million rent-stabilized tenants and use every resource at our disposal to build housing for everyone who needs it.
Gosh, why didn't anyone ever think of price controls before? They've always led to disaster. Everyone remember the 70s? And beyond housing, Zohran's such a miracle worker, money will just magically materialize to pay for everything else as well.
No New Yorker should ever be priced out of anything they need to survive. And we believed then, we believe today, we will believe tomorrow that it is government's job to deliver that dignity.
You know, it's not going well if you have to put out this defense.
But we must remember, in a time such as this, we are not the crazy ones, New York City. We are not the outlandish ones, New York City. They want us to think we are crazy. We are sane.
Totally sane? Well, I guess if shrieking like a magpie qualifies as sanity, she's got it covered.
Jews escaping Holocaust, Black Americans fleeing slavery and Jim Crow, Latinos seeking a better life, Native people standing for themselves, Asian Americans coming together in Queens, in Brooklyn, in the Bronx, in Manhattan, in Staten Island, in this country.
I like the bouncing. That adds a lot to it. And not to be outdone by AOC, other New York Democrats are trying to prove their radical open borders bona fides.
Is it radical to fight to abolish ICE?
At least we know what they'll do, right? If they get back into power nationally, the floodgates will be open again. The migrant caravans, the people streaming across the Rio Grande. Remember all those videos? Come on. Rapists, murderers, human traffickers. They're the only constituency today's Democrat Party truly represents. But as New Yorkers are hurtling toward the socialist cliff, our friends in Argentina averted disaster last night. Astounding the so-called experts, the people once again voted for conservative reformer Javier Milei and his party. They rejected a communist push for the same types of policies Democrats are embracing here. Milei loves his country and he loves Donald Trump. Let's just hope this is a bellwether for the GOP next year, just as the Brexit vote in 2015 was a bellwether for Trump in 2016. If only to dash the hopes of all those hopping into bed with an Islamic radical who hates America.
This is about this November's election, but take that energy, that passion, and take it into 26 so that we can take back the House of Representatives, take the Senate, and take back our country.
Oh, she wants the midterms. She's smart to say this is good here in New York, but let's just go for the real stuff next year. But 24 years after 9/11, this cannot be the man who the Democrat Party considers one of their leading lights.
I want to speak to the memory of my aunt. Who stopped taking the subway after September 11th because she did not feel safe in her hijab.
Those are crocodile tears. Nearly 3,000 Americans are dead after 9/11. And that's where he goes? Someone's upset about wearing a hijab? By the way, it looks like he got a so-called trauma victim wrong. It was apparently, I guess, a distant cousin, not his aunt. Nice job, Democrats. But none of the radicalism, none of the socialism stopped Hakeem Jeffries from finally agreeing to support Mamdani. What exactly, though, is the Democrat Party embracing, other than a deep hatred of this country and our traditions? So think about Democrats like Mark Warner. He likes to project himself as a moderate. Tim Kaine, same thing. They need to either have the guts to call this out and reform their party from within, or just abandon their party and join us. But given what the Democrats did to Kristen Sinema, they drove her out of the party, and what they did to want to do with people like John Fetterman, jumping over to the GOP may be their only alternative at this point. Otherwise, boys, you better be prepared to take orders from AOC and Zohran. And that's the angle.
Good afternoon, and live from Texas, this is the Will Cain Show. Queens, New York, Forest Hills Stadium. Capacity 14,000 people. Center stage, Zohran Mamdani. Something is happening in New York. Something is happening in America. It might be honest, but it's honestly the rise of socialism. And it has left many in what was previously known as the Democrat Party confused about its future. Left in the wake are Hillary Clinton corporate Democrats still scrambling to define the left. But that left has long left men like Andrew Cuomo.
Do you even consider yourself a Democrat anymore?
I am a Democrat. I don't consider them Democrats. Zohran Mamdani is a socialist.
It's true, Andrew Cuomo. It's true. Zohran Mamdani is a socialist, but so too now is the left. We can and we should point out exactly what's happening in New York and what may soon be happening across America, but we cannot deny reality. And what you're seeing on your screen is pure enthusiasm in the city of New York for a socialist, for messages like this from Mamdani.
Let our words ring out so loud tonight that Andrew Cuomo can hear them in his $8,000 a month apartment. Let them ring so loud that his puppet master in the White House hears us. New York is not for sale.
Chuck Schumer is of the past. That no longer exists, the party of Hillary Clinton. That no longer is Democrats. The future of that party is one that is honest. When Zohran Mamdani tells you he's a Democrat socialist, and it should be heard when other Democrats echo that message, like AOC and Bernie Sanders.
Right now, our city and our state and our country are under attack by Donald Trump and the Republicans in Washington.
Is it possible? Is it possible for ordinary people, for working class people, to come together and defeat those oligarchs?
So we should no longer deny reality. Socialism is the brand of Democrats, and we should take them up on their authenticity and honesty and explain as well, what does that mean to be socialist? Let's go over to the wall, because it's not the first time we've seen the rise of socialism across the global stage. It's most notable in Europe. And you can see its inspiration in today's modern Democrat Party, in parties like the French Socialist Party. What does the French Socialist Party stand for? See if this sounds familiar. They're for progressive taxation, higher minimum wage. They are for a commitment to universal health care, public education, and pension guarantees. And almost all of this often comes through the Trojan horse of the green economy. That's just France. If you move to Germany, the Die Linke Party, also for economic justice, wealth taxes, limits on executive pay. How about housing? One of the things that has given rise to Mamdani is talking of rent caps, mass social housing. This type of honesty has its inspiration, and we see this inspiration in the political socialist parties of Europe. Socialists and Democrats always praise the Scandinavian countries, like Sweden, where they're inspired by the Swedish Social Democrat Party. Universal health care, free education, parental leave, and unemployment insurance. Gender equality, LGBTQ+ rights, and inclusive immigration policies. This is what's already happened for decades in Europe. It seems inevitable that at some point the mask would drop and the adoption of socialism by Democrats would happen here at home in America. And that's exactly what is now happening. Mamdani, AOC, and Bernie Sanders are pushing us toward European socialism.
This city was built by the Irish escaping famine, Italians fleeing fascism, Jews escaping Holocaust, Black Americans fleeing slavery and Jim Crow, Latinos seeking a better life, Native people standing for themselves.
That type of roar once killed the political ambitions of Howard Dean.
We're going to South Carolina and Oklahoma and Arizona and North Dakota and New Mexico. And we're going to California and Texas and New York. And we're going to South Dakota and Oregon and Washington and Michigan. And then we're going to Washington, D.C. to take back the White House.
Now, it's easy to laugh all of this off, to mock it and dismiss, but you can't. You cannot deny reality. You can't deny a stadium of 14,000 people rallying around socialism in the United States of America. You have to ask why. Because years of plastic, corporate, fake Democrats driven by nothing but anti-Trumpism are now being offered a vision. It might be a vision that is inherently un-American, but it is a vision. And their only real alternative is this guy, Gavin Newsom, the ultimate plastic, fake, leftward politician. Everything is too cool for you, like that moment outside the White House, or when he plays basketball in China, crosses between his legs, attempts to shake a young Chinese boy, but shakes himself to the ground. You see, Gavin Newsom will do anything and say anything for power, including painting on the All In podcast or the All the Smoke podcast a false picture of his rough and tumble childhood.
It was also about paying the bills, man. And it was just like hustling. And so I was out there kind of raising myself, turning on the TV, started, just getting obsessed, sitting there with the Wonder Bread and 5 stacks of,
it's like the White Stack 5 story.
Come on. Kraft macaroni and cheese.
Bro. Are you talking about me?
Young YG.
YG, man.
Every day in the backyard, just bouncing the basketball, throwing the ball against the wall until the ball is just like framed, man.
Gavin Newsom, just like Steven Jackson, Wonder Bread and mac and cheese, only made it out of the hood by bouncing that ball. That's the story of Gavin Newsom and his plaid scarf. Just hustling, baby. No mention of his father, William, who was an attorney for the Getty billion-dollar fortune. According to Forbes, Newsom was groomed for such success. His father, William, was a college friend of future Governor Jerry Brown, who appointed William to 2 judgeships. William Newsom was also employed by Getty as the administrator of the Getty Trusts. And when young Gavin really got it out of the Wonder Bread and mac and cheese days simply by throwing a ball, he managed to open a wine store with his other rich buddies in scarves in San Francisco. So you have that option as Democrats. All that plastic, slimy, used car salesmanship, inauthenticity, or you get honesty from the socialist Mamdani, the man with a vision. Now, don't make any mistake about this. That vision, I'm sure, attractive because at least it offers something besides fake anti-Trumpism. But it's still scary, the Mamdani vision.
I want to use this moment to speak to the Muslims of New York City. I want to speak to the memory of my aunt, who stopped taking the subway after September 11th because she did not feel safe in her hijab.
The real victim, not the 3,000 people that lost their lives at the World Trade Center. The real victim is aunt, who could no longer take the subway. And here's what he thinks of America.
We will answer a question that our nation has wrestled with from the dawn of our founding. Who is allowed to be free? There are some who hear that question and they know the answer without hesitation. They are the oligarchs who have accumulated vast wealth off those who labor. These are the robber barons of America. And they believe their money affords them a larger say than the rest of us.
Now, Mamdani is real, but that doesn't mean he's not a hypocrite, because those same wealthy robber barons are responsible for funding his engineered rise. A Fox Digital investigation reveals, quote, a database of 110 groups backing Mamdani exposes a tight inner circle of organizations that identify as Muslim or socialist. They're working hand in glove with 76 Democrat Party affiliates, allied groups, and unions. In total, billionaire George Soros' Open Society philanthropies have given 2 big networks in the Democratic political machine nearly $2.5 million in recent years, according to tax filings. So that message, now well-funded, is resonating with young people who are filling a stadium in Queens to listen to a man who was inspired by his professor father.
Abraham Lincoln generalized the solution of reservations. They herded American Indians into separate territories. For the Nazis, this was the inspiration. Hitler realized two things. One, that genocide was doable. It is possible to do genocide. That's what Hitler realized. Second thing Hitler realized is that you don't have to have a common citizenship. The US put Indians in reservations. The US invented the model.
The US granted the model for the rise of Hitler, says the man who raised the man who now looks to and likely will lead the biggest city in America.
It's not even been a year since Kamala got her clock cleaned by Trump in the presidential election, but clearly she thinks it could be different next time.
Could it be you? Possibly. Have you made a decision yet? No, I have not. But you say in your book, I'm not done. That is correct. I am not done. When you look at the bookies' odds, they put you as an outsider, even behind Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. I mean, is that underestimating you? I think there are all kinds of polls that will tell you a variety of things. I've never listened to polls.
Well, she doesn't listen, period. Not to polls and certainly not to voters who are screaming, listen, no, 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 please. And Gavin Newsom's been fantasizing about moving into 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue as well.
After the 2026 midterms, you're going to give it serious thought.
Yeah, I'd be lying otherwise. I'd just be lying, and I can't do that.
Oh, no, he never lies. Yeah, you do lie, and you have a lot. Like when you told us that L.A. was, it didn't need federal help, things were okay in those riots, or that permitting the wildfires would all be expedited. It's taking forever. Look at Malibu. Let's face it, Gavin Newsom oozes inauthenticity, right down to his new phony accent when he was talking about growing up raised by a single mom.
It was also about paying the bills, man. And it was just like hustling. And so I was out there kind of raising myself, turning on the TV, started, just getting obsessed, sitting there with the Wonder Bread.
Macaroni and cheese.
Yeah,
bro.
Are you talking about me?
Young YG.
YG,
But
man.
every day in the backyard, just bouncing the basketball.
I went on and on. It's actually called dribbling. But before we get to 2028, we're in the final sprint ahead of next Tuesday's election. Here to discuss is Special Report anchor Bret Baier, also the author of the new massive bestseller, To Rescue the American Spirit, Teddy Roosevelt, and the Birth of a Superpower. Bret, I follow you on Instagram, and I think you might be logging in more miles than President Trump. Okay, you're everywhere, and I love it. I've been watching you. Fantastic, and congrats on the book.
Thank you, Laura.
So, Bret, I talked about the New York City mayoral race and the angle, but there's also this Virginia and New Jersey gubernatorial off-year elections. Could these serve, in your mind, as a bellwether for the midterms if Republicans even manage to win one?
Yeah, Laura, good evening. I'm coming to you from the Richard Nixon Presidential Library. Getting ready to have an event tonight, but I do think that these races are tightening as they get closer to Election Day. And you look at the polls, they're within single digits. If you're talking about a purple state where the Democratic candidate was supposed to run away with it in both of these cases, in New Jersey and Virginia, and you have a Republican who's closing in the final days in both cases, I think that is a bellwether of this fight is really there, and that it tells you a story about 26. I think some of the story is that the Democratic Party is split, and the oxygen and the power is really on the far left side of the party. And, there's still obviously a large part that's center left looking for other candidates.
Yeah, and Abigail Spanberger is caught between a rock and a hard place on the trans issue and on Jay Jones. And so she's forced to go to the left, even though that state really isn't a hard left state. Certainly never has been, at least, and it doesn't seem to look like one now.
Exactly. I think Virginia is a perfect case in that, you know, there will be a time where we look at the polls ahead of Election Day that should paint a picture, but I'd be careful about polls because remember the New Jersey race last time where Chitterelli, we had him down about 20 points. It finished, you know, single digits, low single digits. And now he's, you know, 5, 6 points, depending on the polls. You know, Mikey Sherrill has not been the best candidate. And I think that both of these candidates are closing.
Brett, an interesting moment aboard Air Force One. It's a long trip for the president to Asia, and he likes to gaggle and talk to the reporters. And he was talking about 2028 and what the Republican ticket could look like then. Let's watch.
We have one of them standing right here. We have J.D., obviously. The vice president is great. I think Marco's great. I think, I'm not sure if anybody would run against us. I think if they ever formed a group, it would be unstoppable.
Marco Rubio sitting there going, please don't mention me. So he's like, don't mention me.
Shaking his head.
Yeah. What do you think about that?
I will note that every time, Laura, that he's asked about 28, besides saying, well, I'd like to run if I could, he says, well, you know, Marco. He throws Marco's name in there. And I don't know whether that's to create the competition between J.D. Vance, his vice president, and the Secretary of State, but he does give Marco a lot of props. He also sometimes says that the two of them could run together right out of the gate and be very formidable against any Democrat that he sees on the horizon.
Now, before I let you go, Brett, and before you get to your event at the Nixon Library, the most surprising, I've had the chance to read the beginning of your book, but I'm going to get through it, and I can't wait to get through the whole thing. But I read a lot about Roosevelt. There's so many great anecdotes about his life and his spirit and his athleticism and his zeal for America and the outdoors. But what was the one anecdote about his life that, in your view, was illustrative of what his political career would ultimately mean for the country?
First of all, he's larger than life, and he is consequential. And you look at all the things that are a result of Teddy Roosevelt around the country. The most surprising thing, though, that I saw was how much of a family man he was, how much he was into his family, how much that drove his life. It led him to real despair and horrible feelings after his wife and mother die on the same night. And he eventually dies after his son is killed in World War I as a fighter pilot. But he spent his time in the White House with his 6 kids, playing with them every day, kind of running around the halls of the White House. Stories that really are something.
Yeah, and relatable in today's society. You didn't think of a man back then kind of playing around with his kids so much, but that was one of the many stories in your book. Brett, congratulations. Come back to D.C. soon. We miss you. But congrats on another massive bestseller.
I'll be there.
Brett Baer, we miss you.
Former Vice President and failed presidential candidate Kamala Harris isn't ruling out running again.
Have you made a decision yet?
No, I have not. I have not done. I have lived my entire career a life of service, and it's in my bones. And there are many ways to serve. I've not decided yet what I will do in the future beyond what I am doing right now.
She's running, I'm here to tell you. That's my prediction, while California Governor Gavin Newsom also admits he's thinking about a White House run.
Is it fair to say, after the 2026 midterms, you're going to give it serious thought?
Yeah, I'd be lying otherwise. I'd just be lying, and I can't do that. I think the biggest challenge for anyone who runs for any office is people see right through you if you don't have that why. You're doing it for the wrong reasons. And so, look, well, that fate will determine that.
Well, at least he's honest. Strategists noted Newsom has made recent moves to broaden his appeal. He recently appeared on a podcast reminiscing about his childhood.
You know, it was also about paying the bills, man. And it was just like hustling. And so I was out there kind of raising myself, turning on the TV, started, just getting obsessed, sitting there with the, the Wonder Bread and 5 stacks of,
it's like the White Stack 5 story.
Come on. Kraft macaroni and cheese. Bro.
But, a 1991 San Francisco Chronicle feature on kids of wealthy families tells an entirely different story. You see it there. Meanwhile, former President Biden showed his face in Boston this past weekend, speaking on the fight to defend democracy.
These are dark days, but we're one of the only countries in the world that time and again has come out of every crisis we faced stronger than we went into that crisis. America should be a place not of extremism and fury, but of decency and grace. That our institutions are what makes us the envy of the world, and our democracy is worth fighting like hell for. The idea is stronger than any army, more powerful than any dictator.
Well, Tomi Lahren could barely contain herself during the Newsom parts of this. That 1991 piece, the article was titled, "A New Generation Makes Its Mark. Society Kids Take Up Endeavors Outside the Expected Realm." It talks about Newsom, quote, in part, "The sons of Gordon Getty and Justice Bill Newsom are opening a wine shop in Cow Hollow in March called Plump Jack," and they go on with these pictures of Gavin Newsom.
Yeah, again, it's the All the Smoke podcast that he appeared on, and how insulting to people that actually had to bust their butt and grind and have Wonder Bread and mac and cheese. So disingenuous. It reminded me of Hillary Clinton on The Breakfast Club saying she had hot sauce in her bag at all times. It just must be so insulting for people. Again, when your daddy worked for the Getty family estate, I'm sure Emily well knows the Getty family and their legacy in California. I would highly doubt that Gavin Newsom was just sitting there with this Wonder Bread hustling. But this is what he has to do. He's a chameleon. How many podcasts does this man do a week, by the way? Am I the only one who notices that not only does he had a podcast called Politickin' with Marshawn Lynch. He did his own podcast, I Am Gavin Newsom, or This is Gavin Newsom. And then he appears on at least 2 to 3 podcasts a week, it certainly seems like. When does he make time to, I don't know, govern the 4th largest economy in the world? People in the Palisades still waiting for the permits to rebuild their homes, you know, all of that stuff. But this man will do and say anything he needs to any group to appear genuine. But every time he does it, he comes off more fake and phony. I hope he runs. He's been running since 2020. And you know what? I hope Kamala runs too.
Yeah, I think they're both going to run. I mean, Emily, you know, you lost all 12 swing states. President Trump, first Republican to win the popular vote in 20 years. But yeah, let's make a run for it.
Yeah, and may I please just provide a little more color too to the Gavin Newsom thing. So he claims that he grew up sort of impoverished, right? But as mentioned, his father was Justice Newsom. In fact, his father was the judge responsible for releasing the Chowchilla kidnapping perps and saying that it was just a prank gone wrong when they kidnapped the entire school bus and buried the children alive for 36 hours. It was horrific. So that's the kind of legacy that the Newsoms lead. And so he was then sort of quasi-adopted by the Gettys. But the whole point is his dad was still a judge. This isn't poverty. This is just being working class. So then they launched Plump Jack together, which is a multi-million-dollar wine empire in California. They have wineries and tasting rooms in Tahoe and San Francisco and the like. He has enjoyed as well the 5-family donorship, which is the same donorship class as Kamala Harris all of these years. So from the get-go, they said, yes, you are the golden boy that we will get behind at this young age and propel you through the mayoral position and the governor position after he hid for a couple years in Montana, after he slept with his campaign manager's wife and broke up multiple marriages. Right? He sort of retreated for a little bit and then emerged back on the political scene to assume the gubernatorial office. And then now if he goes head-to-head with Kamala, that will be the first time that their pas de deux and their choreography actually isn't about sort of sidestepping each other, but going head-to-head with which one will indeed retain that 5-family donor class. So he, believe me, has had a silver spoon in his mouth since day one.
It will be interesting to watch. It will also be interesting to watch the Democratic Party, and they're at a crossroads right now, Harris. I want you to watch this AOC this weekend, and let's see if this is the way the party goes.
This city was built by the Irish escaping famine, Italians fleeing fascism, Jews escaping Holocaust, Black Americans fleeing slavery and Jim Crow, Latinos seeking a better life, Native people standing for themselves, Asian Americans coming together in Queens, in Brooklyn, in the Bronx, in Manhattan, in Staten Island, in this country, in a vision to build the freest, toughest, and greatest city
Socialists have a lot of energy.
Yeah, they love to talk about slavery and the Holocaust. Remember earlier, Tommy, when I was telling you why I see Brandon Johnson and others, they pull those trigger words. They think that they can trigger in people of color fear about voting for anybody else but their party through these words. I mean, they think people are stupid. With AOC, though, it's a different brand. Because Bernie Sanders is saying she's ready to run for president. I'm sure you saw that from Senator Sanders. Yeah, I think this party is drunk on far leftism.
Yes.
She carries a banner. Mamdani is helping, and we will see where this goes. I don't know if the party has room for who I know we're going to hear from in a moment, Senator Fetterman, and many of the others. I can see why Angus King, now an independent, who's voting with Republicans to reopen the government, one of 3 people voting yes, not enough for the supermajority. But I understand why they don't side with him anymore. Now, he votes a lot with Democrats, but he has an I by his name. I get it. I get it. That's not who they are. But AOC, I mean, she is like Howard Dean with a bigger mic.
Yeah, I love that you said drunk on far leftism, because that's definitely how it feels. There is another path, and few give voice to it. You have John Fetterman. You named the other 2 senators. Listen to Fetterman. He says it's time to choose country over party.
I'm always going to vote country over party. I'm always going to vote for paying for the military over my party. The direction where my party's going, I mean, won't see. But I can control my vote and my voice. I'm going to call balls and strikes, and it's an easy choice to pick my country over the party.
And I want to be clear, Guy, he wasn't talking about AOC there or Mamdani, but he was simply talking about the shutdown. And he said, I'm choosing country. I'm choosing paying the military.
Yep. And if you look at the moment in Pennsylvania, I think this is an illustration of where things are in the Democratic Party coalition right now. Fetterman is above water on favorability, broadly speaking, among Pennsylvanians. But among Democrats and the base, they are furious with him, and they are plotting a primary challenge against him to throw him out of office. So someone who is talking common sense, who actually lives their sloganeering about country over party, which is usually just a lecture for Republicans, someone walking that walk, they can't tolerate that. They want him out.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.